Welcome to today's webinar, Careers in Human Resources. I'm Lisa Cook, Director of Career Services at Walden, and I will be your moderator today. Before we get started, I'm going to ask Career Advisor Dina Berggren to launch a poll to find out who's joining us today.
Great, Lisa. Let's find out who is joining us and what is their primary career goal. Okay, so what is your primary career goal? Seeking internal advancement, promotion in human resources, actively pursuing a new HR-related position, preparing to transition into the HR field in the future, or other? So we'll give it a minute for the results to come in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and at this point I will close the poll and share the results. Okay, it looks like 45% are preparing to transition into the HR field. 27% said other. 15% are seeking internal advancement, promotion, and human resources. And 12% are actively pursuing a new HR-related position. So we have a wide range of audiences here today on this webinar. And I will go ahead and,
Dina.
You're welcome. And I will hide the poll. And go on to the next slide here.
Excellent. Thank you, Dina. So before I introduce our presenters for this webinar, I want to familiarize you with Career Services. We aspire to be a cutting-edge global career services center preparing our learners to navigate career transition over a lifetime. We educate, coach, and advise our students to proactively manage their careers. And I'd like to introduce our staff. We have with us today Dina Berggren, who just launched the poll and who will be fielding questions, Nicole Skalski, Denise Pranke, and Andrea Bricky. So if you schedule an appointment with Career Services, you will be talking to one of our terrific 4 wonderful career advisors. So with that, I'm going to go ahead now and introduce you to our faculty presenters today. So our first presenter will be Dr. Amy Puterbaugh. Amy is a faculty member in the Masters in Human Resource Management program and the Master in Business Administration program. She is also the faculty advisor for the Student SHRM, or the Society for Human Resource Management chapter. She has experience as an HR generalist, covering many areas of human resources such as recruiting, benefits, workers' compensation, policies and procedures, and performance management. She has been teaching at Walden for 7 years. Dr. Henry Brashen received his PhD in speech communication with an interpersonal and intercultural focus from the University of Washington.
Lisa?
Yes?
Lisa, we had some trouble with sound and we weren't able to hear you. Could you reintroduce Dr. Brashen again for the audience?
Yes. Dr. Henry Brashen received his PhD in student communication with an interpersonal and intercultural focus from the University of Washington. He completed his dissertation at International Christian University in Tokyo, Japan. He is the program director for the MS in Leadership, MS in Human Resources programs at Walden, and he has served as the Walden Academic Champion for both the BS in Communication, MS Leadership, MS HR, and MS in Communications curricula. He has designed numerous graduate classes in leadership and also has extensive experience mentoring doctoral students. He has taught for over 30 years. Finally, Dr. Karen Smola earned her PhD in management with a dual-track specialization in human resource management and organizational analysis and change from Auburn University. She is certified as a senior professional in HR with the initials SPHR, which our faculty will be referring to later. Dr. Smola has 14 years experience in the HR field as a specialist in staffing and benefits and as a generalist on the manager and director levels. She has taught human resources and management-related courses for 30 years at various universities, from the University of Oklahoma to the University of North Florida and several in between. Dr. Smola has been teaching at Walden for 7 years. Dina, I just want to confirm, can you hear me okay now?
You sound great, Lisa.
Okay, terrific. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Putabaugh to go ahead and introduce our objectives.
Well,
Amy?
welcome everyone. I just wanted to go over the objectives for the webinar today. We're going to highlight human resource career options. Recruiters, generalists, consultants, trainers will speak about some of the specifics. We're going to give you some ideas to build skills and qualifications to increase your marketability and build your professional networking and expertise. So Lisa is going to, Career Services is going to go ahead and launch a poll. What concerns do you have about your current or future HR career? If you have any questions, you can go ahead and type them into the box.
Terrific. And please type your concerns about your future or current HR career into the questions box, because we're trying to find out what concerns we need to be sure to address today. So if you can go ahead, if you have concerns, if it's a tight job market where you are, or you're concerned about certification, or whatever your concern is, please type it in the box. Okay, Amy, I think we're going to come back to this because I'm not seeing anything. Okay, I'm sorry, I am now. Haven't been able to break into the field. Oh, now they're flooding the questions box. Okay, this is great. It's all coming in at once. Okay, so here are some concerns. What resources are available for learning about HR legislation, such as ACA, FMA, etc.? What are the chances of getting a job for a new graduate without any work experience? I have many years of experience, but I don't know how to navigate into corporate human resources. I received a BS in HR, but I haven't been able to get a job yet. I don't know how to get my foot in the door. A lot of concerns about getting breaking into the field, breaking into entry-level positions. Let's see. I would like to transition from a clerical or technical position into an HR position. Let's see. A lot of it is how to go about gaining experience. I would say that's the most common thing I'm seeing. So how does one transition from insurance, for example, into human resources? How do I gain experience? So we will be addressing those questions during the webinar. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dina to launch another poll, please.
Great, Lisa. Our next poll is, what area of HR interests you most? Is it benefits compensation, recruitment, training and development, employee relations, or other? So what area of HR interests you most? And we have many responses coming in here. I'll give it just one more second here and close the poll. Okay, and here are the results. So we have overwhelmingly 56% interested in training and development, followed by 16% other, 13% benefits and compensation, 9% employee relations, and 6% recruitment. So we have in our audience a variety of interests in many HR areas, and the main one being training and development. So I will go ahead and hide the poll. And let's go on to our next section here.
Well, we're going to speak a little about HR management as a career field. You might have looked at that poll and decided that you kind of wanted to do a little bit of everything, and that's great. You might be interested in the role of an HR generalist, someone who works with a variety of HR functions, where your phone rings and you're not quite sure what's on the other end because you field a lot of different areas. If you enjoy that variety, that might be for you. And the job title might look like something like an HR manager. If you really like being the expert in one specific area, you might want to become an HR specialist, such as in one of the areas we mentioned. Some of those areas are benefits, recruitments, compensation. An example of a job title might be a recruiting manager. And when you look at what type of area you want to specialize in, I encourage you to look at your personality a little bit and what interests you. The ideal recruiter would have strong interpersonal skills, technology skills, and that enthusiasm and that knowledge of the organization. So next we're going to look at some job titles in HR. I just briefly wanted to put these up here, and these are entry-level jobs in HR, something you might see if you're looking at job descriptions and deciding what to apply for. You'll see more coordinators, administrators, supervisor, assistant, and on the next slide, you'll see job titles with HR with experience. You'll see the word manager more and more featured, director, VP, a little more specialized on the specialist end. And there's different ways to advance your career. You can move from one specialty to another. That's a great way to kind of have some different experience behind you and kind of build yourself more so you have more to pull from and you're more valuable to an organization. You can move from an entry-level specialist to supervisor or manager level in the same specialty area, such as if you're a benefits assistant, you can move to a benefits manager and up the line that way, or you can move from a specialist to kind of a generalist background. A generalist can move from an entry-level generalist to a supervisor or managerial level generalist, or move from a generalist to a specialist. So this is quite fluid. You can move in and out of areas. There is sometimes a problem where people get into a very specialist role and have a hard time breaking out of that role. For example, someone who does benefits maybe have that expertise, and that's exactly where the company wants to use them. And if that's great for them, that's great for them. If they want to move more into a generalist role, you might reconsider specializing in that area in the first place. You can also move outside of HR. You can move into HR to gain that perspective and knowledge of the business and then return to an HR job later. I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Smola to talk about growth trends in HR.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Some of the things that are happening in HR are kind of exciting for the first time in several years. The BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, predicts that HR specialties will increase 21% in the next, well now it's 13, the next 7 years, and that's really fast. So there are opportunities out there for you. Particularly though, they're saying that it will be in the employment services industry more than others, and that is a super way to get your foot in the door because you will be working for, let's call it for better terminology, a temporary agency, but you would be their employee. And they are going to expose you to everything from recruiting to background checking to training to job placement to progressive discipline, termination, compensation. It's really a great experience. So if you have that opportunity, don't overlook that sector of our field. Now, why is this growth so fast and what's going on? We have seen exponential growth in new human resource laws. Every time I turn around, there's a new email from SHRM and information on the news that tells me we've got either a new legal update on the horizon, a new law, or they're going to amend some of the others. And so keeping up with that is just really a challenge, a fun challenge, but nonetheless a challenge. The other thing is that so many companies are going global that's expanding our field, and we as professionals need to expand into the global environment, but those that already have are going to be moving toward that end of their, or that segment of their career, and a lot of us will then need to replace them as they move to the global environment. And all of a sudden the most wonderful thing has happened to us in our field. Organizational leaders, the CEOs, the top management team members are beginning to understand that HR can provide a wonderful culture, programs. They can really help the organization meet its strategic objectives and do it with great employees and other great abilities and people that come into the organization and are there. So using HR to make the organization successful is something that is extremely exciting for HR. SHRM has a job webpage where you can go on and post your resume. And I'm not sure if this is for members or not. I would have to go in and check on that. I forgot to look for that. But of the people that have registered on this page, 36% have a certification, PHR, SPHR, and that says a lot about the credentials, or why those credentials are so important. 89% of them at least have a bachelor's degree or higher, and 75% have more than 10 years of HR experience. And while that sounds daunting, well, gee, I don't have 10 years of experience, you're getting a bachelor's or a master's degree. You can eventually become certified, and that 10 years will come much faster than you think. Now, just a quick detour off to the certifications. You will see on this slide that there are 7 of them. Back in the old days, we only had the PHR and the SPHR, and then they added the GPHR, which is the Global Professional in Human Resources, which was great that they added it when they did, because we have a lot of GPHRs that now have already mastered what they need to master to be in that arena and that environment. So I'm glad that they did that early. And then some of the states are adding certifications because, for instance, California has so many different laws compared to other states. Also, Wisconsin, Michigan, some of those north central states are next in the line of adding their own certifications through the Human Resource Certification Institute. And they've added 2 new ones, and I'm not real familiar with these yet other than what I've read, but the Human Resource Business Professional and the Human Resource Management Professional are for senior type HR professionals who want to know more about the business and want to know more about how they can drive the organization's strategy. Sometimes through change, sometimes not. But those are a higher level certification. And I found it very interesting to see that we now have professionals in over 100 companies, and or countries, I'm sorry. If you wish to find out what the eligibility requirements are, I've provided the link here for you. Many students want to know, should I become certified, and if so, when? But at this point, what I think we need to know is, why would you want to be? Why is it important to you, and why is it important to organizations that might hire you or your current employer? The issue with certification is that you understand the core knowledge, the practices, the procedures, the best practices, the principles, culture management, change management. You understand how all those impact an organization and how to do it right. And by being certified, you're saying that you have mastered that body of knowledge. You also want to be certified because you are much more marketable. If you'll read the want ads, you're going to see that those ads say certification preferred. Many, as the jobs are higher in the hierarchy, will require it. And that's becoming more and more prevalent. It also raises your confidence among people that you work with, whether it be in HR or in other departments. But to say you're certified is just a real way to boost your credibility and your professionalism among those that with whom you work. Also, when employers insist on certification, what they're wanting is they want to make sure that everything in HR is updated and current and will keep them out of legal trouble and will help make the organization successful, as I've said before. And then they want their organization to stay competitive. And what do we compete for? Applicants. We want applicants. We want employees that we can grow and develop and promote and retain for a long time. So being competitive through our HR programs is how we obtain those outstanding applicants. The one thing that I hear all the time from my students, and have heard it for years, is I want to get into HR, but every job ad I see says 2 to 5 years experience. And so how do you gain experience? Well, the first thing is you're interested and you're here at this seminar, and so you're learning about it. The next thing is, I'm assuming you're a Walden student and you are getting some education to assist you and to add to your resume, your skill box. But the one thing that I think we neglect to do, and I do it as well, think outside the HR box. If somebody has managerial experience, supervisory experience, or has worked for a small business and performed some human resource type jobs or tasks like interviewing or setting up benefits or talking about performance or filling out a performance appraisal, scheduling, coordinating payroll, helping employees get through problems that are human resource related. All of that counts as human resource experience. So don't think because you haven't been in a quote HR job that you are not experienced, because if you have experience in an organization, you'd be surprised at what becomes human resources when you think about it outside the box that we always put HR in. The other thing is join Student SHRM, and that's a plug for Amy's group. It's so cheap to join. I pay $180. You pay $35 or $45, and you get almost everything I get. So join it, because I heard a question earlier, how do you stay up with the laws? Well, that's how, because you can go in and get emails set up, they send them to you, you stay current, and you can do research after you get an email to find out what's going on. Also, if you can attend your local professional SHRM meetings and start networking, that is a great way to get your name out there in your face so that people know, oh, I met that person at a meeting last month. Let me see if I can remember who that is, or she gave me her resume, I'll send it to you. That networking is very important. If you can find an internship or a volunteer position that you can juggle in your already busy life, then go for it. And if you are a member of Student SHRM, volunteer for a leadership position. Volunteer to do a project. As long as you can add that to your plate. It's a very good experience to put on a resume. We also have, among all the certifications, there is one called Student Assurance of Learning. And once you earn your degree, you can sit for that exam. And if you get that, if you pass that, then you get to put SAL on your resume, and HR folks are going to know that you passed that exam, and it says wonderful things about you and your knowledge. Very quickly, you can read these. I just want to look at what's going on in what's trending in the HRM field. First of all, surely you've listened to the news and you've heard all about the Obamacare and the employee health care coverage in the U.S. We're going through drastic change. It's driving my doctors crazy. Every time I go in there, they're just so hassled trying to get everything on the computer and deal with the federal agencies and that sort of thing. So this is a big issue for us, and HR really needs to be on top of that. And it includes 1 and 2 there. Also, we're getting more global competition for jobs because a lot of people from overseas and other countries are getting jobs here, and a lot of that is because we can do it with telecommunication. And so some of the jobs that used to be here have gone overseas and vice versa. So we're having that competition. And then with all of the laws that have been passed recently, we have to be on top of those laws and make sure our organizations and our managers are on top of it. Lots of training and communication. So we need more HR folks doing that or fulfilling that function. And there's been a lot of changes in court rulings that have changed how we interpret our laws, so we have to stay up on those as well. And again, SHRM can keep you there. A lot of us baby boomers, I'm being one of them, are leaving the workforce right now, all at the same time, and it's leaving a huge void of people or employees. The pool is much smaller, and so how do we do more with less people? I think about 6 years ago they were estimating there would, by 2010 or 2020, there would be a 13 million void of applicants for jobs in the United States, and that's scary when you think about that. The other issue is that we have a lot of competition. India, China, Brazil, we're getting a lot of that, and those markets are emerging, and if you want to go into global HR, there's some wide open opportunities there. But that also brings the need for understanding business cultures and business settings that are not done the U.S. way or the American way. And we have to become very savvy at that and make sure that our organizations, if we're in the global market, that we're able to move our employees to that level. The budget deficit is a little tough for us. We're all having to cut corners, and so we're going to see a lot of that affect our field. And we're not sure what's going on with the market. So, you know, are we out of a recession or not? We're not quite sure we know. So. Now, you get an interview, and my students will email me and say, oh, I got an interview now, you know, but now what? So when this happens, do your research. When you send in an application or a resume and apply for a job, start your research immediately so that you have it down, you've got your notes, and you're ready to go. Read their webpage. What's their organizational history? Who are the leadership people and their last names? And when you meet them or when they say their names, it's important that you show recognition. And then what's their strategy? What's their culture, their values, beliefs, so that you can explain how you fit that environment in that organization. How do they operate? Are they teams? Are they individual? Are they mostly telecommuting? There's all sorts of job designs on how organizations do work. So you need to be aware of that. And then what kind of jobs are in the HR department that you might be interested in? And when you submit that resume and when you practice your questions and answers for your interview, make sure your terminology matches what was in the job ad or the job description, because that's critical in getting your foot in the door and showing understanding. Now, this is going to sound a little negative, and I'm sorry if it does, but there are some things that will keep you from getting a second interview. And one of them is if you say the people are an organization's most important asset. They are most of the time, not always. A pharmaceutical company's most important asset are their patents. But if we use cliches, then the interviewing people in HR will think, not quite sure that person understands what HR does. And even more so, they will think that if you say, I want to be in HR because I like working with people. Every job has to work with people, and that's not what we do every day. Yeah, we work with people, but we work with other things, which I'll get to in just a minute. And if you say HR is the backbone, the heart and soul, that cliche of what you're saying is that HR is the most important function of the organization. And in reality, every function within a company thinks they're the most important one, so we don't want to step on toes. Now, the purpose of HR, many people think it's to protect the employees or to champion the employees or to make them feel good or manage them. But in reality, our #1 purpose in human resources is to protect the organization's liability and contribute to its strategic success. So how do we do that? We are responsible for creating systems, programs, policies, procedures, and practices that include the HR laws. We base everything we do on HR laws to keep us out of trouble. So we create these programs and policies and procedures with that in mind, and that included. And then we make sure that the policies and procedures we set up and the culture they show respect and value to our employees, and that we tell them we want to develop them and retain them in many ways other than just verbally. And because we do these two things, we have minimized our organization's liability, which goes back to what our purpose is. So when asked the question, why do you want to be in HR, there's a really good answer right there for you. And that might raise their eyebrows, and they'll look at you a little bit deeper. Okay. I believe that I'm turning this over to Henry, Dr.
Yes,
Frashen.
I am.
Thank
Can you
you.
hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
What wonderful information, really great information. As I was listening to all this, I was revamping my presentation for a couple of reasons. One is I wrote down the concerns that were addressed or mentioned in the first poll, and the other is looking at what area of HR you're interested in. So I'm gonna hit on those, and I want to start by I'm just going to take a few minutes with you, but I want to share a very short story. Of course, the way I tell a story, any short story is a long story, but really, when I started out many years ago, I was working on my master's in communication. I finally got that, and I was not able to get a job. I couldn't get a teaching job. I couldn't get a job in corporate. And I thought, well, wait a minute, I've got this degree. And so what I started to do, and the reason was I was an unknown entity. And so what I did is I was able to get part-time teaching jobs, and I started as a consultant. I had an idea, and I'm going to come to that in the next slide here. And that started me out. And when I went into corporate as a consultant and tried to get work, I partnered with HR departments. And so I had no background. You're way ahead of the game if you understand HR. I did not have a background in it. I had a background in communication. So I learned by working with HR departments. And what I found out was there were gaps in terms of what Dr. Smola just said is the value of HR and what a number of HR people were actually doing. So I learned for me that, okay, those gaps I'm going to address. And I was amazed. Once I got my degree and I started doing this, just with the master's degree, it opened up doors. It was amazing. And so I congratulate you. This is like the first step in getting you where you want to go. I can speak about 2 programs at Walden, the ones that I'm program director for, but I know the others do these same kinds of things, which are having a cutting-edge curriculum that help you develop the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and behaviors that are really necessary. And I found that as I developed skills, I was more in demand. And it was interesting because I looked at, fast forward many years later, I looked at becoming the program director for HR as we were designing our program. And what I wanted to do is hit those areas, those gaps that were not addressed for many years by many HR departments. I'll tell you this as a consultant, those HR departments that were really good and did the things that Dr. Smola was telling you about, I was out of a job as a consultant. They didn't need me. It was the others that weren't doing those things where I brought added value, and they would bring me in to do those kinds of endeavors or train HR folks. And so I always thought, when I got to the position that I can help build a program, I want to put in all those key things: talent management, metrics, performance management, strategic HR, global HR, building trust, communicating with the C-suite. All of those went into our HR programs. But whatever degree you get, the degree can open doors. People value education, and especially at Walden we have applied education. So the theory is turned into action. So that's enough of my pontificating. I'm going to turn to the next slide, and I'm going to share some specific steps with you. So if we could go to the next slide. Many of you, I believe it was 56%, were interested in training and development. And that's where I really, that's where I took off. And I'm going to suggest some things to you. Dr. Smola and Dr. Puterbaugh had suggested things earlier. To build on that, think about, as you go forward, and often you'll hear, and I've got to tell you this, experience. You don't have experience. Well, I'm here to tell you that sometimes experience is overrated. There are many people out there that have experience, but they aren't very good at what they do. So if you can showcase what you do, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how you might do that, people are going to see that, and that's when you get noticed. So whether you're volunteering, whether you're at a career fair, whether you're talking with coworkers about some things that you learn, that's going to make a difference. So what I'm about to say, I'm changing this just ever so slightly, because I put this together with regard to consulting and organizational development training. By the way, well, I think of organizational development training as separate branches of the same overall thing, which is developing employees. But whatever you want to do, if you want to go in this area, first step is to develop some kind of plan. So I'll give you an example. My plan way back when, in working on my master's degree, I had some skills and knowledge about leading teams. And as I saw in corporate, many organizations, most organizations needed teams that worked effectively. So I developed a training around that. So that was my first step, developing a plan, have a training in place. So I designed this training. I identified the benefits, laid out costs, actually put together a little brochure, which is nothing like you have the capability of doing now, but at least it was something in those days. And then I took it around. And at the same time, I attended workshops and classes for two reasons. One is to hone my skills in the things that I wanted to contribute and the things that I wanted to share with my clients. And two was to actually do some networking. Now, there are many wonderful workshops at Walden that you can attend, but you can also do what Dr. Smola suggested, is to join the SHRM student chapter, and it opens up a whole world of possibilities. And that's one way you can develop your skills. So doing those first two things, you could do those tomorrow on your own. The third one is find a mentor and a coach. For me, I went back to my dissertation chair, who had become a consultant. And I said, Gary, can you help me? I want to be a consultant. I want to do training and development. I've got some ideas. I'm not sure how to market myself. I'm not sure. So he sat down and we worked out a plan together. He walked me through the kinds of things he did. He had me identify a niche. He gave me feedback. He coached me. And I'm telling you, there were a lot of days that looked dark, but each day each day was a new day, and that was really exciting. The other thing I'm going to share, it isn't on here. I should have put it on here. Find a sponsor. A sponsor is somebody that can get you in. For example, I approached school districts early on in my consulting career because I have a background in academia, and I wanted to do workshops for teachers. And I met the head of a district, and she and I had several conversations. And she said, Henry, I'm impressed with what you're telling me, but you really don't have any experience. And my response to that was, I have the skills, I have the knowledge, I have the desire, I have the motivation, and can make a difference. So if you give me an opportunity, you'll get a return on investment. And she gave me one small training, and I was able, it was exciting because it went very well, and then she started marketing me to other heads of districts, school districts. So I did this, I began to do the circuit. So finding that sponsor, somebody's in a position to really do something for you, and it makes them look good too. The other thing here is using the Google Alert. This is a wonderful feature which allows you to put keywords into Google Alert. Anytime there are updates or there's something on a particular topic, you'll get a notification. And the nice thing about that is you stay current in your field. Joining associations, again, the local SHRM chapter is just a wonderful opportunity, and I would encourage you highly to do that. LinkedIn, using any kind of the social media and networking, because once people get to know you, that is going to make a difference. And actually asking people for help. They love to help you. So the final couple things I'm going to say is seek feedback. I remember putting together a sales training, and I wanted to run it by a few of my colleagues to see what they thought of it. Well, it really sucked. I'm sorry to say that. It wasn't good, and they gave me the feedback. So when I picked myself up the floor, I readjusted it and took their feedback and used it, and it made a positive difference. But the one thing I want to say, the most important thing, is never give up. You get a degree, you have a skill set, you have a leg up on a lot of people. And if you identify a skill and you're positive and you chase your passion, I'm telling you the best is yet to come. So now I'm going to turn it over back to you, Lisa.
Yes, Henry, thank you very much. What a great presentation. This was just chock full of so many great strategies and tips for our students. So this is wonderful. Thank you. And so actually Dina has been moderating our questions queue, so I'm going to pass it to Dina to start posing those questions to our faculty.
Thank you, Lisa. The first question is, it's difficult to enter the field of human resources without the experience. I have worked as a supervisor at a retail store in the past. Do you have any tips for me?
Well, I'll jump in there only because I probably have the least HR experience academically, but I probably have as much experience as anyone working with HR departments. And the thing that I found is going to career fairs, approaching HR, asking finding out a little bit more about what they're doing, what their plan is going forward, showing an interest, volunteering. Those kinds of things can make a difference. I know in my own career, those were the kinds of things that I would do. Oh, and I would get rejections too, but for every 4 or 5 rejections, I got someone that was interested. And once you get a foot in the door with just one thing, you can build on that.
I would add to that, Dr. Brashen, with the idea, the concept that you may have to go to work for an organization that you like and you fit really well, and then transition into HR. Once they know what you can do, then that makes it much easier for them to say, oh, okay, she doesn't have experience, she has her degree, we know she's a hard worker or he's a hard worker, let's give him the chance. So think about that as well.
Okay, we have more questions coming in here. One question is, what are some suggestions or courses other than the communication courses that would help increase experience in public speaking and or vocabulary building skills, which are important to HR?
We have a number of courses in HR, and I believe also in other programs. We're moving more and more to embracing the technology that is out there. And speaking skills, there are more opportunities now to utilize the technology to leverage that and provide speaking assignments. So we have some of those in HR. I know that they're in other programs as well. And I see more and more of this coming to the forefront. It'll be second nature. So you can get communication, you can get speaking skills in some of the other programs outside of communication. But you can also join something local like Toastmasters, Toastmasters, any opportunity, Chamber of Commerce, where you have a chance to practice and hone those skills.
Great. Our next question is, SHRM sounds like a good resource, but there seems like so many different levels and costs. It's confusing to me. Any tips?
Well, I can take that one. This is Dr. Peterbaugh. Sure, membership isn't required if you're in HR, but it's a good resource and there's good opportunities within it. There's one membership fee to join National SHRM. As a student, it's about $35 a year, and it includes membership in the national chapter and in Walden's student chapter. And the big benefit of that is really the national chapter. They have incredible resources, and I should mention they also have a career center on their website. And if you are looking for a career, if you are new to HR, I encourage you to keep asking that question. How can I market myself? How can I get in the field? As many places as you can, and just kind of stockpile those answers and use those resources. There's a professional membership. Dr. Smola mentioned about $80, but it's more expensive. And if you join as a student, they let you pay $80 for 2 years after you graduate, as opposed to the $180, which is kind of nice. But the $35 is the best yet, and it just shows that you're invested in your profession. There's local chapters to be a part of. I love my local chapter. They have luncheon meetings. There are many leadership opportunities. Anyone could go in and say, boy, I'm interested in leading, and there will be something for you to do, whether it's working on a newsletter, working at registration, being a legislative liaison where you give the group some update on HR law. And they also, my local chapter has a learning system for the certification exams. Those are usually, $500, $600 systems that they just loan out as part of the library. So an incredible expense that they cover. And it's a great chance to meet other HR people. They have speakers on HR topics, and you get to meet those people. People in other professions, medical professions, IT professions, don't always, they want to meet HR for companies and their communities, but they don't have access to that group like we do. So sit down, know their names, know questions, find out about what they do, find out if it's a good company to work at. You can gauge if you like that kind of specialization, if you like that company, just from that informal conversation sometimes. And non-members can join monthly meetings. It's a great way to network.
Great. And the next question is, I have been in HR for 10 years, recently laid off, and trying to move my career towards a more strategic role in consulting, organizational development, change management. One approach has been trying to work for consulting firms, but it has been difficult to gain access. Any suggestions?
I'd love to jump on that if I could. Been there, done that. I would encourage you to take a look at both the company that you were at and similar companies, because you bring some skills that aren't necessarily readily held by outside consultants. You understand the industry, you understand the company, and that makes a difference. So when you say, well, I work in this particular industry, here's my experience, here's what I have to offer, and then pick the niche that you want to market to. And it really will be easier than you may think, and it will give you a leg up. So that's one approach, rather than joining another consulting company where you might not get to do what you want to do, and you might not have the freedom to do what you want to do. So I would encourage you to go forward with that.
Great. And the next question is, what are your thoughts on submitting resumes via the internet? I have been diligently seeking employment in HR since 2010. I currently have a MHRM and over 10 years of experience and great references. What are your suggestions for someone like myself?
I have a question, and I know we are not interacting here, but if you are applying online, use all the terminology that they use in their ad or in their job description. Make sure that it matches, because so often they're running that through a computer program, and if you use the wrong terminology, then it won't match. The computer won't match you up and spit you out as qualified. So really think about that, because that's the first thing. And then after that, I would say preparing for the interview or even a phone interview by becoming extremely knowledgeable in the areas that the job ad or the job description stressed.
I'd like to echo on what Dr. Smola just shared with you from two perspectives. As a program director in MHRM, I hire faculty. Also, when I was a consultant, I worked with upper-level management on hiring people for positions. And what Dr. Smola said is that in the interview, see, you want to get to the point where, in the resume, it has to talk to the points that they raise, or you won't get any further. For example, at Walden, I throw out some questions to our recruiter and say, screen them through these questions. And if they don't address that, then they could be the greatest person in the world, but I won't even interview them. So Dr. Smola's point is extremely well taken. Talk to the points that are there. Then, if you get to the interview, you have a much better shot.
Great, and we have several questions regarding whether the presentation will be available later. It will be archived on the Career Services Center website 1 week after today's live delivery. And we have time for one last question. We have other questions coming in, but I think for the sake of time, the last one will be, I am thinking of taking the PHR exam before graduation. Is this a good idea?
I guess I'll take that one. I don't recommend taking it until you have graduated, for one thing. But the second thing is, you may not qualify if you don't have the experience requirements. And if you'll go to hrci.org and search for the eligibility requirements, you'll find with a master's, a bachelor's, or a doctorate what you have to qualify in work experience. And once you know you qualify, then you can apply. And then my suggestion is that you wrap up your degree. You certainly can take it any time you want to. I'm not telling you you're wrong in doing that. I just think that it's so intensive to take these exams on top of schoolwork, and most students of mine work, that I don't think you'd be prepared enough without really concentrating on it. And I took 6 to 8 weeks. I used to teach the prep course, but I still, when I was taking my SPHR, I spent 6 to 8 solid weeks of going through the materials and prepping with my own plan. And the day before I went, the hour before I went in to sit for my exam, I was going over all the laws, the handout for all the laws, and refreshing my memory, because I knew on the SPHR that would be heavily emphasized, and it was. So I just think that it's so intense that you ought to just tie your great degree up with a bow and then quickly move on to starting to prepare for the PHR. And Dr. Peterbaugh said something important when we were discussing this earlier. Don't let it go so long that you forget half of what you've learned. Go on and jump right in after you've had maybe a month break or something if you qualify. Also, if you don't qualify, don't forget that I mentioned the Student Assessment of Learning exam. You might want to look into that, and there's a great resource on the hrci.org webpage, and that is the Certification Guidebook. So go in, you can download it. I think it's something like 30 pages or so, so you probably don't want to print it out, but you can download it, put it on your computer, and read through it and see what you think. And I also strongly suggest you find some sort of preparation course. I used the SHRM Learning System, and I'm a real proponent of that, but I know that Dr. Peterbaugh used another system. So just find the one that fits you best.
If I can also add, I think it's the SHRM system is wonderful. I use the SHRM system on my GPHR, and it was at a time where I had some money and I had very little time. So I took a weekend course, and they give you a study plan, and I get the learning system, and it was, I don't even know, maybe $1,000, and I had to commute for it. But it was very worthwhile because I had very little time at the time. When I took my SPHR, I had a lot more time, and I sat down with my textbook at the time, which was the Mathis and Jackson textbook that's used in some of the classes in the program, and I studied that, and I knew that textbook. I got a few resources from a group called HRCP. I don't know what that stands for, but it's just hrcp.com or .org, and they had some flashcards that were very cheap. I could just do them on the treadmill, or as I went out and about, I could take a small handful and do them during the days. I really enjoyed the flashcards. And then I also picked up a few units on just areas I was weak. For me, that was unions, and at the time it might have been global, but just one or two little supplementary systems. If I had joined my local SHRM chapter and they had the loaner learning system, I would have certainly used it. But it was just, I had the time and I didn't have the money for the expense. And these exams, they're intimidating and they're kind of expensive. I don't know what it is to take one now. Maybe $400, maybe $250. I'm thinking $400 or less.
I think it's up to, well, I don't know. It used to be four or five, up to $400 to take it, to sit for it, like $395.
Okay, so it's substantial, but it's kind of a drop in the bucket compared to tuition as well. So don't be afraid to take it, and go in there with a good mindset and be well versed in it. But I would certainly encourage you to take it, and if that's a little time off after you get your degree, that's just fine. I wouldn't recommend waiting more than a year. I remember, especially in areas I didn't work with, like unionization terms, I would have forgotten those.
Okay, thank you. And I think for the sake of time, this will be it with questions. And Lisa, do you want to discuss the Career Services Center?
That'd be great. Thanks, Dina. Okay, so thank you all very much for attending today. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, there's a brief survey that we would really appreciate your completing as you sign off this webinar. Just so you know, the Career Services Center is here to support you in meeting your career goals. As you can see, we have the Archived Webinars tab starred here. So if you'd like to listen to this webinar again or look at our other webinars that are archived, just click on that button. And also, Optimal Resume has sample resumes in business and human resources in various fields, so we recommend that you take a peek at that system as well. And I mentioned our archived webinars. As you can see, we have archived webinars on the next slide on a variety of topics. We orient students to career services through weekly webinars. If you haven't attended one of our overviews, you might want to listen to see what other services we offer beyond career advising. We have webinars on building your professional network using LinkedIn, which is a great way, as we highlight in this webinar, to build your network and make key networking contacts, building your professional brand, and also conducting an effective job search. Also, we have specific resources regarding management and human resources. So you would want to click on our tab for resources, and then by school or college you click on management, and then you can see you'll find professional associations, job opportunities, and LinkedIn groups under that resource section. And then finally, just to stay connected with Career Services, we encourage you to join our Career Services LinkedIn group. We're nearing 1,600 members. It's growing on a daily basis. Also, you can follow us on Twitter to find out some really interesting and timely career management articles and get updates on our upcoming webinars and other offerings. And you can read student success stories on our blog, and then check out our optimal resume system. So for all that, please access our website at careercenter.waldenu.edu and email us with questions at careerservices@waldenu.edu. And that pretty much wraps up our program. A final thought to leave you with that Dina found. I really like this quote. Far and away the best prize that life offers is the chance to work hard at work worth doing. And so I wish you all very much great success in your HR careers. Thank you for participating, and thank you very much to our faculty presenters today, Dr. Amy Puterbaugh, Dr. Karen Smolla, and Dr. Henry Brashen for collaborating on this webinar. And thank you, Dina, for your support as well. Have a great evening, everyone.